Howdy doody everyone, Wambu here. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate! Actually, before we get into that, I'm gonna take you guys back for a second. Centuries ago, in the era of 1999, humanity collectively created a commercial where a bunch of Nintendo characters fucking killed each other. It turned out, that was actually a video game. Not just any video game either, but my very first video game. The first seed in what would grow to be my everlasting love of a relatively new medium of entertainment. And almost 20 years later, I'm probably gonna be living in a hut made of sticks and wet newspapers, but that franchise, it's still going. Smash Bros. Right now is going on its 5th super hyped, mega successful title, and it is just candy-coated fan service. One of the most contentious topics going throughout the franchise is the number of veteran characters that were left behind from game to game. Where was Mewtwo in Brawl? Where was Ice Climbers in Smash 4? But Ultimate won't have that problem. Every playable character from the previous game is coming back. And that's why this feels like the perfect time to recount them all and talk about the best of the best, to me. The guy with the best of the best opinions. Any rules? Not really. I look at over 60 fighters, I pick my 10 favorites, try my best not to touch any nerves, and hopefully Waluigi remains an assist trophy. Oh, fuck, that just sort of slipped out. Anyway, let's begin.
Fight me.
So, big qualifier here, but I didn't actually play much of Meta Knight when he first came into the roster in Brawl. If you weren't one of those players that regularly guzzled the salty tears of their enemies, then you were like me, a good bean that didn't want to make other people mad. Double S tier. Nuh-uh. I have a conscience, okay? This ain't right. However, you know me, I love me a good game balance, so taking things over to Smash 4, and the fall from untouchable godliness gave Meta Knight the rise in my good graces, which is significantly less impressive, but shut up. It's something. This time around, while his mobility has improved, his damage, his range, and his frame data have all been weakened. And yet, once the public lambasting was quelled, I found a lot to love about this fighter. Dude, like, look at that swing speed. And when you match that with generally minimal ending lag, well, how do you think the combo ability is? Spoiler, it's good. Up air is fucking insidious. Sounds like quite the fun character so far, but can he recover? Yes, he can recover, but can he KO? Yep, he can do that too. Okay, but real talk, does he have weaknesses? Absolutely not! Yes, he does. For as mobile as he is, he's not really as fast in the air as you might think. He also lacks a projectile, meaning it's always up to you to pull a successful approach on the enemy. Also, in spite of being one of the lighter characters in the game, he has a pretty high falling speed. And while that's pretty good for mobility, it also makes him easy for enemies to combo. So I guess at the end of the day, Meta Knight is a bit of a risk versus reward character. And while he's not topping the tiers anymore, I've always been more interested in fairness anyway. Welcome to the plane of us mortals, pal. Alright, first of the N64 veterans, let's go! Yoshi is so adorable. Moving on. Nah, dude, it's just a joke, you fucking fool! So I was originally gonna do with Yoshi what I did for Meta Knight, and commend him entirely for his Smash 4 iteration, since once again, that's my favorite one. But really, Yoshi and I, we've always been tight. Compared to the rest of the cast, Yoshi is pretty unorthodox. Like, even by the standards of unorthodox that the franchise has already set, and that's saying something. With the exception of his down B, his specials all have this cute little egg motif. He's got egg throwing for a projectile, egg rolling, which sucks. I like it, though. And the cheekiest of all, egg laying. That last one in particular is great for punishing shields, and if you manage to get it off, you can also pull some pretty nice combos. My child, you've been born anew. Now get ready for a mollywhoppin'! Have I mentioned his air game, by the way? No biggie, really. It's just the stuff dreams are made of. Yoshi's aerial mobility, I love. But he's also got some pretty killer aerials to boot. I love this dare. It's so unfair. So good. Okay, but come on, there's drawbacks somewhere. Hand 'em over. Problems with Yoshi are twofold. Number one, as much as I can respect a freakishly long tongue, you really want to try grabbing people with it? It doesn't work in real life, and it only barely works better for Yoshi. Not that he has a particularly strong grab game to take advantage of anyway. The more obvious issue, though, is that Yoshi lacks a proper third jump. In substitution, his second jump basically launches you to the fucking moon. And if that gets interrupted while you're recovering, forget about it. It's over. On the whole, though, is it safe to say that Yoshi is my favorite Mario character in Smash? Probably, but he seems to more often rep his own franchise. So I guess Yoshi is my favorite Yoshi character in Smash. A lofty accomplishment indeed. Ah, geez, I'm about to do the dumb. To judge something that so many people have dragged through the mud before you even set your eyes on it, well, it gives the benefit of low expectation at the very least. That being said, there's a huge difference between sticking up for the underdog and just having a flat-out shitty opinion. You know, forget about Pit. I'm clearly the one who needs guidance here. Explaining why Palutena is great is a tricky task, but you know what? I'll manage. Now, from my understanding, she's a perfectly A+ waifu, but she doesn't seem to offer much on the mechanical side as a Smash fighter. Not helping my case is the specials, which consist of a counter, a warp, a reflector, and only one attack that does direct damage. Not helping with the previous not helping is some of her grounded moves, like her tilts, which are kinda sluggish and don't really have that much power. So what, I'm just vouching for a garbage can? No, not at all. There are reasons Palutena was able to slip through the cracks. First of all, her grab game and her aerials are surprisingly pretty good. Down throw, down air, back air, and up air are my favorites, but across the board, she ain't bad. Second, a bunch of her moves have some funny little quirks to them. A couple aerials have unexpectedly large hitboxes, up smash has fucking stupid vertical range, the dash attack gives invincibility, and a number of her moves have win boxes, which occasionally lead to some of the goofiest gimps and recovery denials. And when you factor in the deflector and counter from earlier, it's all just so trollish in a way that I can't help but adore. Predictability is probably Palutena's biggest bane, so experienced players can almost certainly see through the bullshit. Is that gonna stop me from trying, though? Hell no! Challenge motherfucking accepted. You guys remember the Smash ballot? Where players could send in requests for their own fighters and everyone was like, dude! Shrek. Remember how exciting and fun and not at all disappointing it was for any certain green chandeliers? Remember how we could have had Bandana D? Nah, but seriously, Bayonetta as a character is fine. I have zero attachment to her personally, but she certainly has her fans, so it's cool. But as a fighter, right from her trailer, she looked absolutely disgusting. I knew that she was gonna be broken as fuck. Everyone was like, no, Wambu, you're crazy, dude, it's fine. But I was right. In retrospect, though, I wasn't too unhappy. Because while everyone else was lapping at Bayo, I was getting excited for a different character that was announced on the exact same day. Oh, yeah, this is what Smash needs, right? Another sword fight. No! None of that. They still operate differently in terms of mechanics, so shut up! If you guys don't mind, I'm gonna be referring to Corrin as a she because I prefer the female design, and hence it's the one that I actually play. As sort of an inverse to my first impressions of Bayonetta, I saw Corrin right away as a pretty fresh take on the sword characters. Well, outside of a very typical and mediocre recovery, my Wamboy instincts were once again correct. Again, we've got some fluid combos thanks to strong aerials and tilts, but what I mostly dig is the incorporation of her dragon forms. I mean, any move where she just becomes full dragon gets top marks from me. She has one of my favorite counters because of that, but most of her moves see her partially transforming her body to utilize the dragon fang in a number of different ways, which is freakish, in probably my favorite way. Highlights of that include a chargeable projectile with a stun, a forward smash that reaches beyond the fucking stars, but you know what I could go for. A far-reach high KOing potential move where I embed myself into the floor and look silly as all hell doing it. This is my favorite Corrin move if it wasn't obvious. I guess at the end of the day, that's why Corrin felt so fresh to me. The Omega Yado feels more like something that works in tandem with the rest of her moveset rather than the centerpiece of it. Makes for easily one of the coolest sword fighters in the franchise, and man, I am just glad my excitement wasn't misplaced this time around. I think when you follow a franchise for almost 20 years, you just sort of grow to accept that everyone involved, creators and consumers alike, are actually just insane people. Consumers because they want the weirdest shit, and creators because they provide the weirdest shit. I think what's happening is that I'm the only sane person, while the rest of you have catapulted off the fucking rocker. Joking aside, I get it though. To me, the strangest characters have always been those that reference quirky relics from Nintendo's history, but I can't deny it's always made for interesting characters. So I'd feel bad if I didn't include at least one on the list. Especially when Rob in particular is so goddamn fun. At first he kinda had that black sheep appeal to me. A mediocre accessory turned smash fighter with a moveset that can't help but look kinda rigid and awkward. And not gonna lie, what you see is kinda what you get. Startup time is occasionally a problem with some of his attacks, but us awkwards gotta stick together like glue. So I shall welcome and I shall love. And you know what? It's been a worthy investment because once again, Rob is one hell of a lover. Is a great character. His aerial game is pretty respectable, with his neutral and down airs being some of his most reliable KOing moves. But I'm honestly a pretty big fan of some of his throws. Oh, okay. Fuck with me, why don't you, chump?
This is what you wanted.
On a side note, this throw can stick people in the ground in the new game, and I am immediately in love with this. Probably the best and most annoying aspect of Rob, though, is his zoning capabilities. The Robo Beam is pretty nice and powerful, but the gyro in particular is a thing of beauty. It hits hard on first launch, but then you can pick it up and you just throw it. You just throw it. Second to that, though, is a lovely little passive ability called Not Dying. This is partially thanks to the Robo Burner being one of the best recoveries ever, but also, like, he's a big, hulking apparatus comprised of several mechanical parts. He's a heavy boy with a big bottom.
Winky face.
Meaning he could take a butt ton of punishment, but still retain relatively good mobility, at least when compared to most other heavyweights. So while yeah, Rob can be a strange character to get into, there really is a lot to love about him. I honestly thought he'd be thrown into the pits after Brawl, but I'm really glad that wasn't the case. Always happy to have you around, you fucking weirdo. On the other hand, if we flip the script to a much more conventional heavyweight... Oh, I see. One of them Gen 1ers, huh? No. One of them Flare Blitz spammers, huh? No. Oh, so you're just a fucking idiot. No. Shut up. It was kind of a weird choice to have Charizard as his own character after he debuted alongside Squirtle and Ivysaur in Brawl, especially when he seemingly wasn't all that popular as a fighter compared to the other two. He was always my favorite though. Okay, so like, why do I like Charizard? Well, stop me if you've heard this one before. Charizard is very, very strong. However, he is also slow. And big. He is a big boy. Big boy equals big target. But you know, I find the most glaringly obvious flaws are also some of the easiest to compensate for. And you know what, to be fair, he's not actually that slow. His dash speed is the 9th fastest in the game, and thanks to Flare Blitz, he's actually got some decently reliable recovery. But see, usually the other problem with these heavyweights is the startup time on each of their attacks. Like, is this attack right here gonna go off before I die of old age? I don't know. But once again, Charizard doesn't really have that problem. There aren't too many frames in which his attacks are active relative to their animation, but regardless, they're not necessarily slow. What it amounts to is a heavy character that still delivers a heaping dose of the fuck my shit up bam special without feeling too lumbering. And I really enjoy that. In some ways, it actually makes me kinda sad to see him get put back into a trio again. No hate for Squirtle or Ivysaur, but I was more than okay with just this. Don't really need an introduction, Marth is pretty much the quintessential sword character. No equipment, or elemental attributes, or dragon transformations, just sword. Only sword. And there's never really been a need for anything else. Marth has been in 3 games now, going on 4, and has remained a consistently great character, competitively or otherwise. I'd say strong fundamentals can make up for imagination running on empty, but that's honestly not being very fair. His most unique attribute is his tipper mechanic, meaning that the very tip of his blade does more damage than the rest of it. The name of the game? is Super Smash Bros., but the name of the metaphorical game is spacing, operating at the proper distance to maximize damage onto your opponents while minimizing punishment onto you. Marth embodies the importance of spacing, and is luckily given good attack speed, mobility, and range to match it. Only downsides are his lack of a projectile, leaving him vulnerable to zoning, and his kinda shitty recovery. But aside from that, look, he's been in the upper parts of the tiers for a reason. Now you may be wondering, what about Lucina? Yeah, she is on here too. I don't normally do ties, but is anyone seriously gonna be mad at this? Naturally, a lot of the attributes I like about Marth extends to Lucina as well, except Lucina doesn't have the tipper mechanic, meaning she's not as reliant on spacing. But doesn't that remove one of the big things I praised about Marth, though? Okay, yes, but I don't really think that makes her a worse pick so much as it does a safer one. It means Lucina doesn't really get punished for missing any tips, and because her damage is consistent throughout the blade, she has slightly more consistent KO potential. And honestly, I kinda like that. It makes her one of the only clone characters that I play just as much as the original. So yeah, it might be a cop-out, but I couldn't really decide. Martha stuck around longer, and Lucina is just a really nice and fun alternative. Plus, I'm more attached to her as a character. We could debate for a while which one overall has more merit for this list, but nah, I'm not gonna make that cut. Y'all can bicker amongst yourselves. I'll just be here enjoying the both of them.
My roommate was a frog kid. You ever see a frog kid?
Frog kid?
Yeah.
Yo, I still remember all the reactions to this. Oh wow, a shuriken made of water, is that fucking Mewtwo? Y'all are fucking buffoons. For real though, what many thought would have been the return of Mewtwo, for me, ended up being something so much better. I mean, we got Mewtwo back later, and if that's what you wanted, I'm happy for y'all, but Greninja was the inclusion that had me careening over the moon. And how does it perform? Like a goddamn beast. Not really as powerful as before. Daddy Sakurai has had to put the hammer down on Greninja a number of times, to the point where nerfing it became its own meme, but now the storm has been weathered, and Greninja came out of it on the other side still a badass. The way of the ninja entails agility, both on the ground and in the air, and being a freaky frog means it's also got one of the highest jumps in the game, making Greninja one of the overall best characters in terms of mobility, and they matched it with some pretty creative attacks to boot. You call that a tongue, Yoshi? Eat your goddamn heart out. I am assembling the new meta over here. Actually, the tongue, unfortunately, isn't used that much throughout the moveset. Instead, we have the mind games factor and the subtle approach of Shadow Sneak, the push of Hydro Pump, and I know I said Corrin had one of my favorite counters, but honestly, Greninja might have just beat it. Unlike every other counter, Substitute can be aimed in various directions, making it good for combos and even recovery. The way of the ninja is cheeky as fuck, and I love it. And speaking of combos, we've even got those, since just about all of his aerials are pretty good combo starters at low percentages. Really, the only issue I have with Greninja, and this is kind of a big one admittedly, it turns out the way of the ninja is also quite punishing. A lot of his attacks have quite a bit of ending lag, meaning you gotta put extra thought into which moves are safe to use when. Otherwise, you'll get torpedoed in record time. The skill ceiling is pretty high, but Greninja's got enjoyable enough fundamentals to warrant coming back, even if you're kinda trash at the game, like me. There, I said it. Heck off. Well, time to throw competitive viability square out the window. It's the name you should know. Longtime fans of this channel will no doubt see this one coming. Kirby honestly ranks up there as one of my favorite characters in all of gaming. It was inevitable that I was going to be magnetized to him in just about every Smash game. Admittedly, that road has been pretty rocky because Kirby absolutely sucked in Melee. And I don't mean lol Kirby sucks, get it? I mean he was slow, he was not very powerful, had zero good matchups, he was straight trash, which hurts a lot because as my placement will have indicated, he is, in fact, my boy. I will always be thankful to Brawl and Smash 4. Those games treated him way better, and now I honestly find him to be a pretty underrated fighter. He's not bad mobility-wise anymore, and a lot of his attacks, grounded or otherwise, feel very clean, with some actually good KO potential. He's one of my favorite characters if we're just talking game feel. Like, realistically, what feels better? The knowing touch of a lover, or playing as Kirby post-Melee? I think I know the answer. His combo game is also pretty amazing, with his aerials and tilts transitioning pretty seamlessly into one another. I love down tilt in particular. Kirby's already small stature makes it great for avoiding certain attacks, but the chance of tripping your opponent is insidious in a way that I am mentally incapable of resisting. And then we have his specials, and oh my god, I love them all. The down special is a notoriously great KOing move that can also act as a shield at times. It can be predictable, but you'd be surprised at how often people forget about it. Your demise was in your shitty memory, pal. I also love the hammer. It eats away at your percentage, but it pretty much disintegrates your opponents if you manage to hit. My advice, bait out the counter and then punish. And then there's the up special, which I admittedly don't have too much to say about. It's a pretty good recovery, and it's generally satisfying to hit with. But of course, the most iconic move is the neutral special, the inhale, in which enemies that get trapped by it can either be shot out of Kirby's mouth as a projectile, or swallowed in order to copy the neutral special. The best is if you inhale someone like Samus or Captain Falcon, because then you get the chance of KOing someone with their own move, and that is just my favorite level of disrespect. Admittedly, all of these specials are pretty predictable and punishable, but they're just so fun. Like with Greninja, there's a mind games aspect to each of them. And when paired with the game feel I mentioned earlier, Kirby provides one of the funnest experiences I've had in Smash. Super glad that he only sucks in the literal sense nowadays. And before we get to number 1, here are the honorable mentions. I know for a fact a ton of people would be asking about him had I not mentioned him here. Fun character, but his appeal wore off on me over time. It's actually kinda crazy how much ass Peach kicks in this franchise. She was pretty close to making the list proper. And here we reach the really painful cuts. I love the aura mechanic, but I don't know, Lucario just never really became a main of mine. I'm not a fan of the franchise, but I can't deny that Mega Man is ridiculously fun. It did take a while for him to grow on me proper, though. A lot of people dropped Jigglypuff after Melee, but honestly, the appeal of having a stellar air game while also being able to stay in the air pretty much forever has never really lost its luster. So stupid, but so fun, I expect nothing less from a Kojima character. Oh man, this one hurt. I'm honestly kind of amazed anyone missed Young Link after getting this guy in Brawl, but hey, now we're getting them both in the new game. And finally, my number 1 favorite Smash character. Gee, Pokemon, how come Wambu lets you have 3 characters on the list? Is it because you yourself are a Pokemon, Wambu? No, it's not a funny joke. Stop it. By the way, Pichu is actually an honorable mention as well. I just thought that mentioning him before would make number 1 too easy to guess. In the case of Pichu, I play it because it's funny. As opposed to Pikachu, where you play it because it's amazing always. Unlike with Kirby, there's never been a bad time for loving Pikachu. It was arguably the best character in the first game, and while it's never been quite as dominant as back then, it's only felt more and more developed with each passing game. The only real problem I have is the squishiness, and yes, I sort of mean that literally. But more importantly, it dies quickly. Everything else is noise. I said Kirby had great game feel, but in terms of just moving around, Pikachu is such a slippery little nuisance. And it really is the fluidity that makes it so infectious. Being able to weave in and out of combat and racking up the damage and combos with multi-hitting electric attacks. And that's still not touching on the specials, 2 of which enhance Pikachu's already stupid mobility, and the other 2 being some of the most hilariously spammable moves in the franchise. Thunder especially if we're talking pre-Smash 4. It sort of suffers the Greninja problem of having high ending lag on some of its aerials, but they all have pretty high payoff when used correctly. And in general, its aerials, its grabs, its tilts, and its smash attacks are all top-notch. Now, this isn't to say that I enjoy Pikachu because I'm a sadist that likes infuriating people with the most ethical form of shock torture possible. As I said before, I prefer not to upset others, but Pikachu is the right amount of annoying. Viable enough to use in a serious match, but silly enough to gravitate towards when I want to take the piss, and I swear I'm not making that joke because he's yellow. But to top everything off, Pikachu is so fucking cute. Like, come on, that's just objectively precious. Everything about Pikachu is just super charming, and I am thrilled it stayed as consistently good as it has. In a franchise that has literally never left my life of gaming, Pikachu has been and will continue to be my main for life. Until Pichu unseats him in the new game.
Its electric shock still damages itself too, so be careful.
What a god.